Well, I'm half Welsh and half English,
Okay.
and I was born in the city of Lincoln, and I spent most of my childhood there. I was there until I was about 20 years old, apart from 2 years living in Australia. And I went through school, and all through school I wanted to be a teacher. That's all I wanted to do, but all the way through school people kept saying to me, oh, that's too difficult, it's too hard, you can't do that. And I kind of lost my track a bit when I got to the end of school and decided this is not for me, and left school early and had a number of different jobs in different places, doing accountancy, admin, personal assistant, those kinds of things, until I fell into human resources. And after a while I started studying for the CIPD qualifications, and when I became a human resource officer after all these years of wanting to do that, I realised that I didn't really like disciplinaries and policy writing and all of those sorts of things, but what I loved was training, and that's how I ended up becoming a trainer. My partner at the time, when I first met him up in Lincolnshire, he was originally from Hemel Hempstead, and he managed to get himself a job back down in Hemel Hempstead because he wasn't too keen on the rural lifestyle, you know, when you've got to go to a supermarket and you have to drive half an hour to get there, and then you find out that it closed at 4 o'clock and you're there at 4:15. So he wanted to come back down to Hemel where he knew. But I took one look at Hemel Hempstead, and no offence to anybody who lives there, it was just a little bit too built up for me. I like to have green spaces around me, so we kind of negotiated, and we saw Milton Keynes and the greenery and the lifestyle, and it gave us that combination of two things that we wanted. Him wanting the amenities of a town, and myself wanting the access to the countryside. So that's why we came here back in 1991. I think at the time Lincoln hadn't got a university, and it's not really on the way to anywhere. So Lincoln and Lincolnshire was just full of Lincolnshire people, and a lot of people had been born and they were raised and they died in the same village. They didn't move very far. You didn't get to meet people from other cultures and other places, and people didn't come into Lincolnshire very much either. So the big difference for me was the fact that all of a sudden there were these people that were not only from different cities but different countries, and there was this fantastic mix of cultures in Milton Keynes. So that was a big difference for me, yeah. Right, lots of different ways, and I think that in more recent years I've become more involved in different aspects of Milton Keynes life. Through work, I've worked for charities such as Milton Keynes Women and Work, dealing with a diverse range of ladies who are trying to improve their skills. I do some voluntary work. I've worked for one of the charity shops in Milton Keynes, and that's a fantastic experience in terms of just the different people who come through the doors and that you get to communicate with and talk with. And then more recently I've been more and more involved in groups with either youngsters and developing their skills and their confidence, and people with disabilities, and that's the main focus of my role now. Yeah, I found it fairly easy, but I think that may be because of my personality, because I'm quite happy to talk to anybody. I mean, you were saying about going into London. If I go to London, I try and strike up conversations with people on the tube, and they look at me as if I'm crazy. But it's maybe a northern thing that we have.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm quite happy to sort of put myself out there, to talk to different people, to mix with different groups. I'm interested in what's going on, so I get my nose in and say, what's happening here? Is it something I'd quite enjoy? Right, well the young people that I've worked with, I deal with, in one of my voluntary roles, I deal with schools groups who are coming to learn about nature and life and the life cycle of animals. And they can range in age from 4 years old right the way up to 18-year-olds. And they come from schools that are all over Milton Keynes. So you get, again, the whole diverse range of children there. with my work with the learning disabilities teams, again, it's a wide range of age ranges, different types of disabilities. Some people have had profound and multiple disabilities. Some have had the ability to communicate. Others haven't had any verbal communication. So it really sort of pushes you to work on creative ways of interacting with people. And then more recently I've been working with the Milton Keynes Centre for Integrated Living, and there it's just such, again, a range of disabilities and people with disabilities that I'm meeting. Well, Milton Keynes Centre for Integrated Living has been around for 20 years now, so we've been here for a long time.
Yeah.
And the big thing that we do is that we provide information and support to people who are living with a disability, and we can provide information in terms of accessing transport and mobility, things like benefits and grants, equipment that they might need, different support groups that they could access, how to go on holiday as a disabled person. All of our services are delivered by people who have disabilities, so you get to learn about what you need to learn about from people who've been there and can give you that really empathetic view of things. More recently, MKCIL, which is slightly easier to say than Centre for Integrated Living,
every time.
CIL have just achieved a new contract to provide advice and support for people going through the social care procedures, and that includes things like the information advice service that I've just talked about. Also, if they've been given the personal budget of the cash option, and they want to recruit a personal assistant to help them with their day-to-day living, then we can help support them to become an employer of a personal assistant, and to set up a payroll and make sure that they comply with the law, those kinds of things. And then the last part of it is around the peer support planning and brokerage service. Again, it's about if you've just been allocated funding, or you're trying to work out your social care plan, then people with disabilities can help you through that and help you to put forward to social services what your needs might be and how you might like to have that, have those needs met. You know, we can't guarantee that you'll get them done in the way that you want them done, but at least we can help you to put your case forward. And we do get a lot of really good feedback. You know, people quite often, if they've been diagnosed with a disability, it can be a very frightening time for them. So just being able to talk to someone who's had that experience and who has, you know, they've lived through it, they've come through it, they're positive, and they're now giving back to the community as well. It's quite inspiring. I think it's quite challenging, and that's where my particular role within MKCIL comes in. Because my role is to try and open people's minds to disability and what they need. I know when I was actually supporting a lady who has profound and multiple disabilities, we were out just before Christmas accessing the community and seeing some of the Christmas sites that were going on. And I was quite horrified when we passed somebody and I heard her say, those people should be locked up. I didn't think that kind of attitude was still out there, and it was quite shocking, and that's where I got quite passionate about getting people to try and understand the needs of people with disabilities. You know, there's a lot of fear around interacting with someone who has a disability, and all the disabilities aren't necessarily visible. Some of them are invisible, and it may just be the behaviour that you get a response to that can be challenging. I think it's around that whole difference issue. The person is different to me. Are they going to react the same way as me? I think there's a great fear that if I try to communicate with them or I try to interact with them, I might be misunderstood. There's fear about the response that they're going to get. What happens if they don't understand? What happens if I get it wrong and I look like a fool? But really all you need to do is just ask, what do you need from me to help us have a conversation or to help me give you this service? Well, how do we do it as a society? I think the first thing to think about is get over yourself. Don't worry about being embarrassed. It's more embarrassing to sit and ignore somebody who's in the room. So say hello, give them a big smile. You know, we all like to be recognised and spoken to, and acknowledged that we are there. And if you are starting to struggle, if it's not working, then try different approaches, but most importantly, ask the person what they need. Well, the main training package that we deliver actually has quite a significant experiential part to it. So we simulate a range of different disabilities, and we encourage people to try the disability out. I know that sounds quite corny, but it does open people's eyes to the effect of a disability. For example, putting somebody into a wheelchair and getting them to manoeuvre themselves from one room to the next. They realise how difficult it is, and then they realise when we get someone to push them around just how frightening it is if somebody else is in control of your mobility. So it just gets them to sit back and think a little bit about what people might need. I think so. I really quite like it here. I feel like I'm at the centre of the universe because we have such really good transport links, and my family is sort of partly in the north and partly in the south, so I can get to everybody from where I am here. I think the only thing that might change is I'd quite like to get back to the rural lifestyle again, so you might see me sort of moving to the outlying villages somewhere. I'd say to them that it is a fantastic place to live. There is so much here on offer for people from so many different backgrounds. But the one thing is that you really do need to make the effort to get out there and look for it yourself. If you sit on your sofa and you hope that something's going to happen or something's going to knock on your door, it won't happen. You really do need to get out, get onto the different websites, you know, look in the local papers, find out what's happening, join a group and just get involved. It's fantastic. I enjoy the fact that I can just step into those green spaces again. I feel quite claustrophobic when there's sort of lots of city and lots of people around me, and just being able to go and walk in the countryside and hear the birds and look at the greenery, and that's the big thing for me. I'd say they probably haven't been here. I know that from when I first moved here, when my family and friends first came down to visit, before they came they used to make lots of jokes and say strange things, but then they would get here and they'd look around and they'd say, wow, it's really good, it's fantastic. So yeah, people who complain about us probably haven't been here or spent any time here. I think it's got a brilliant future economically with all of the organisations and the companies that are here. It's growing, it's vibrant, we've got lots of different communities, which is bringing a real sort of fusion of cultures. The one thing that I'd say is please don't take away too many of our green spaces, because that's one of the things that makes us unique here, is that green. In my role, it's very much about working with companies, either companies who have employment, people that they employ with disabilities and helping them to do that, or it's around helping them to fulfil the needs of their customers. We have a website, it's on MKWeb / Centre for Integrated Living, or the phone number, we're open from 10 till 4, and it's Milton Keynes 231 344.
MKMIX TV, sponsored by Network Rail.